Tea time. Let me tell you a story about a little girl by the name of Jessyca who was under the age of 5 when her parents got divorced. Once they got divorced, the father moves out, he gets another girlfriend, and she stays primarily with her mom. Now, right next door to her mom, a new neighbor moves in. His name is Steve. He has a young son by the name of Ryan. He has full custody of Ryan. So Jessica and Ryan are about the same age, so they start to play together. Well, Steve, which is Ryan's father, notices that Jessyca has a talent for creative writing. He goes to the elementary school where they work at and becomes a teacher's aide. Then he starts a writing club where he's able to take the children out of class after school and during school and practice with their writing. He starts to single Jessyca out and start taking her out of class by himself. And when the mother hears about this, the mother's like, wait, this doesn't sound right. I got to put a stop to it. She goes to Steve and she says, I appreciate your recognizing my daughter's talent, but I don't think this relationship is appropriate. I don't want you to stay away from my daughter. Steve's like, I'm so sorry, I apologize, but you know what? I understand it. I wish you well. Well, she thinks that's the end of it. She continues to take care of her daughter, but shortly after, Steve and Ryan, they move out of the apartment. They move across town right next to Jessica's father's house, and he becomes friends with Jessica's dad under the pretense of telling him, oh, your daughter's super talented. She's gifted. I really need to work with her. She's going to be a great author one day if you let me have my time with her. Jessica's father's like, okay, that's no problem. And one day he comes to Jessica's father and says, I need to take her out of town for the weekend. And while we're there, we're going to get this book published. So when we come back, she's going to be an author. Jessica's father's like, okay, that's no problem. And he goes off with Jessyca to take her out of town. Now, while he's taking her out of town, Jessyca falls asleep in the car. She's thinking, well, my mom would not allow me to do this. But if my dad says it's okay, what can I do? While he's taking her out of town, she's in the car. She falls asleep. And when she wakes up, she's tied up. And he looks at her and he says, your name isn't Jessyca anymore. Here's your new name. And now I'm your dad. And if anybody asks, tell them that your mother and your twin brother, they died in a car accident. And that's why you look so sad. And she's like, oh my gosh. He manages to get her on a flight without even showing any ID for her or anything and take her to another state where they check into a motel. Once they check into the motel, they explain to the motel clerk, hey, this is my daughter. I homeschool her. So we're going to need to have a quiet room. And they said, oh, no problem. We're going to put you over here on the side where we're having construction. Nobody really goes over there and nobody will be able to disturb you. He's like, perfect. He takes Jessyca to the room. He begins to berate her. He begins to tell her, nobody loves you. Nobody's looking for you. You're ugly. Nobody wants you. And he begins to sexually abuse her. Now, she's locked in the room. And at this time, they don't have like the key fobs like we have now. They had just the key and he could lock the door from the outside. She couldn't get out. She couldn't even use the phone. But after some time, her parents are looking for her, of course, and they know that she's with this man. So it makes it to the news. It makes it all around the country. And for 120 days, they still can't find her. Finally, they make her story makes it to America's Most Wanted. And once it's on America's Most Wanted, the hotel clerk sees it and she's like, that's that man that's in that room with the little girl. But she doesn't recognize the little girl because he had cut her hair and dyed it another color. But she calls the FBI anyway. And once she calls the FBI, they come down and they arrest the man and they find little Jessyca and they bring her home. It turns out that entire time that he was taking Jessyca out of class, he was emotionally and sexually abusing her. He also threatened to kill her entire family if she ever told anyone. So she never did. When Steve was finally sent to prison, 2 correction officers were fired from their jobs after they found 2 inmates violently attacking Steve, and they just turned the other way.